Okay, if there's nothing else, we will proceed to our lesson today. We just covered Rule 1, which is a solar angel collects himself, scatters not his force, but in meditation deep communicates with his reflection. Rule 2 in white magic reads as follows. When the shadow hath responded in meditation deep, the work proceedeth. The lower light is thrown upward, the greater light illuminates the three, and the work of the four proceedeth. Okay, Joshua, you were going to explain that to us last time. I'll let you have at it here.
I was going to try. So the shadow would be the personality or the lower self.
Right.
In meditation deep, I'm not sure if they mean the meditation of the personality or the soul there.
It would be both.
The lower light is thrown upward, meaning the light of, the various lower bodies. And the greater light illuminates the three, the mind, emotions, and the physical body. The greater light being the light of the soul, I assume. And the work of the four proceeded, the four being, I guess, the soul and the lower three.
Okay, good. Right, it sounds very esoteric the way it's written, but when you understand what he means by the three and the four and the greater light, then it becomes pretty simple, really. But, and that's the thing about these writings is once you get the symbology down, then after a while it reads about as easy reading as the newspaper. But until then, when I first started reading it, it was kind of a test of my endurance to get through my first book because there was a lot I didn't understand at first. There's still a lot to be understood as far as that goes. And we're going into some very deep words in a few minutes, by the way. Okay, as Joshua said, the greater light is the soul. And the lower light is the light in matter itself. And matter is composed of, there's actually three states of matter. What are they again, Joshua?
Are you talking about solid, liquid, and gas, or are you talking about the different planes?
Different planes.
No, so the mental, emotional, and physical.
Right, we have physical matter, which is three states. We have the emotional matter, which is controlled by feeling. And then we have mental matter, which is controlled by thought. So in each of these states of matter is light. Now we know in the physical realm, in the center of the atom itself is a nucleus composed of light, which is composed of protons and neutrons. And then the electron creates kind of a cloud around the atom that shields the inner light. So it's possible for that inner light from matter itself to reveal itself. And this has happened on a couple recorded occasions. Can anyone remember when it happened with Jesus? Let's pick on somebody different. Jules, when did it happen with Jesus?
Sorry, I'm still trying to learn to use this thing, and I had you on mute. And
No problem. You just turn it on and off mute. Yeah, turn it on mute when you're not talking and off mute when you're. Yeah.
Okay. Can you please repeat the question? Because I was actually taking notes.
Okay. When did it happen with Jesus when a great physical light was revealed around him?
Well, one time I can think of is when Moses and Elijah came to him on the Mount of Transfiguration, and they observed him become a being, or they observed him change physically and take on a higher level of light that they could observe with their physical eyes.
Right.
Is that what you're talking about?
Right, exactly. And he glowed like the sun, right?
Right.
Now, did that happen with Moses also?
As I understood, it would have, because in the time that Moses came to Jesus, he was already a light.
No, I mean in the days of Moses after he come down from the mountain.
Oh, Well, as I understand, people looked at him and could see a physical change on him, and they explained it as something like the glory of God was upon his face, and the light of God shone from his face.
Right, and Moses was so bright they had to put a covering over him because he was hurting the eyes of the people.
Oh, I didn't know that part.
Which was interesting. So
what was this Moses and Elijah coming to Jesus thing? I don't remember that.
that was on the Mount of Transfiguration. Jesus took Peter, James, and John up on a mountaintop, and then Moses and Elijah appeared to him. And when they appeared to him, the apostles witnessed that the face of Jesus shine like the sun. And so that was a case where the covering of the inner light of the atoms themselves was taken away, and the actual physical light shined, as well as the higher lights also. So it is possible for that to happen. So we have two accounts of that happening. I can't think of any other record in the scripture where people shine like that, but there's accounts of visitation of angels where angels shine like the sun.
There was when it was, who was it that was thrown into the prison, or it was some kind of chamber in the Old Testament?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
and
that one. And the guy in the guard or whatever was looking through the peephole and saw these guys inside and said, "Where'd they come from and why are they glowing?" kind of thing.
Okay. So anyway, the lower light, and he compares it also to the solar system. The light of the sun shines through, and the light of the planets is adjusting to that higher light of the sun, and the light of the planets, like Earth, will intensify over time, so it'll be glorified also. So anyway, everything changes. There's light in everything. There's light in the lowest plane, which is we're in right now, but we're still sitting on vast quantities of energy and light within us and without us that can be manifest. Okay, the goal of meditation, he says, is to enable the brain and mind to vibrate in unison with the soul. So this is important, that we tune in to the soul and learn to vibrate in unison with it. Because unless that happens, we will not be able to enjoy the magical benefits of higher spiritual energy. The inclination of man is to vibrate in harmony with the lower lives on his own plane. But the true disciple must seek something higher than that which is around him, which is his higher self, and tune himself to it, like you tune a guitar to your highly qualified ear until it becomes harmonious. And this is what we have to do to the soul. We have to tune our inner chords, inner strings, to vibrate in harmony with the soul. And when it does that, it may not be in harmony with the out of harmony physical reality around us, because the physical reality we see around us is vibrating out of harmony with the spirit. And so to adjust ourselves to the spirit is difficult, because we have all these strings around us. Visualize yourself with lots of musical strings playing slightly out of harmony all around you, and then above you there's a string in perfect harmony, and you need to get in harmony with that string that's right above you. But you have difficulty because you have all these distraction of these strings vibrating to the left and to the right and to the front and to the back, and you have to tune them out and listen very carefully to the purity of the string vibrating overhead. And this is what we have to do with the soul. Tune into that vibration, and it's difficult because you have to tune out a lot of things to get yourself in harmony with that which is above.
That actually happened in real life. The industry decided that they were going to make, years ago, they're going to make 440 the standard A.
Oh, yeah.
But in nature,
Right.
it's more like 432 or something like that, not 440. So the entire musical world now is out of unnatural tuning.
Yeah, yeah, that's certainly true. Jason gave us a lecture at one of our gatherings about that, and he sang John Lennon's song "Imagine" in the right tuning, and he did a really beautiful job.
Is there a recording of that?
I think there is. Yeah, it's about 3-4 years ago he did that. And he said, imagine it. John Lennon did some recording in that the right key or whatever you call it, and the right vibration. Okay, the soul and personality says correspond to several different things. First of all, the head center and the base of the spine. The head center connects us to the soul, and the base of the spine is a source of life. So think of lower carnal physical life compared to the soul as one correspondent. Second correspondent is the heart center and the solar plexus. Solar plexus is a seat of the emotions like anger, romantic love, jealousy, the positive and negative emotions. And then the higher is like the best word to describe it would be the pure love of Christ, where the person serves because of love of humanity. This is the higher correspondent of love. And the third one is the throat center and the sacral center. What's the difference in creation between now the throat center governs creative enterprises like music, art, entertainment. What's the difference between creation through this higher center and physical creation through sex? Yeah, Joshua?
You create new things with the throat center, where I guess the sacral center would more create like copies or pre-patterned things.
You're really close. On the sacral center, the creation is like pre-programmed stuff. The physical body it's all created by lots of miniature computer programs at play. With the throat center, you create new things through intelligent will. So you govern what you create by yourself. And this is a higher form of creation than just duplication of something that's already pre-programmed. Okay, so it's the throat center governs creation on a higher level. So he points out there's a lot of correspondences between the soul and the higher self and the lower self. The higher creates from a much higher vantage point and sees from a higher vantage point than the lower. Then he says there's 4 words to be pondered on in understanding this rule: communication, response, reorientation, and union. Okay, the communication has to be initiated between the higher and the lower. Then once it's initiated, then there has to be a response. Now this is where a lot of people fail. And maybe they get a little communication, but they don't really incorporate it. And if you don't incorporate it, then you don't get more communication. You have to respond to what you get, or else a higher self figures it's wasting its time with you. Okay, then once you, what'd you say?
Well, I was just gonna put it in an anecdote, but maybe it's a sidetrack.
It's okay. And then the second is reorientation. So once you get a response, then you reorient yourself, which is kind of where the word repent comes from. The word repent in the Greek means that you go in one direction and then you turn around and you go a different direction. That's the core meaning of the word repent. So when the old prophet said to repent, they were merely telling everybody to change their direction. And then the fourth is union, where the person eventually unites with the soul, so he becomes him. His soul is not only in heaven, but on the earth. And when his soul is in heaven and earth is united, then the solar angel, which is basically your mother in heaven, can go back and do other work and leave you as a completed soul on your own. Then he talks about some really great words. And these are, I think, the greatest words written in any book anywhere. They have more in them than more light in them in a few paragraphs than anything I've seen anywhere. And we'll spend the rest of the time going through them. I don't know if we'll get completely through it, but they're tremendous words, and I call them words of eternal life because they contain the keys to actually overcoming death. First of all, I'm going to read the whole thing, and then we'll go through it line by line. Just listen to it and absorb it as I read it. When communion is established, words are forthwith used, and mantric law assumes its rightful place, provided that the one communicates the words and the three remain in silence. When response is recognized as emanating from the three, the one in silence listens. The roles are changed. A threefold word issues out from the triple form. A turning round is caused. The eyes no longer look upon the world of form. They turn within, focus the light, and see revealed an inner world of being. With this, the mana stills itself, for the eyes and mind are one. The heart no longer beats in tune with low desire, nor wastes its love upon the things that group and hide the real. It beats with rhythm new. It pours its love upon the real, and Maya fades away. Kama and heart are close aligned. Love and desire form one whole, one seen at night and the other in the light of day. When fire and love and mind submit themselves, sounding the threefold word, there comes response. The one enunciates a word which drowns the triple sound. God speaks. A quivering and a shaking in the form responds. The new stands forth, a man remade, the form rebuilt, the house prepared. The fires unite, and great the light that shines. The three merge with the one, and through the blaze of fourfold fire is seen. Okay, you may not understand all that, but I think you will feel that the words are very potent, if nothing else. Now, he talks a little bit about where this came from. This came from a book in possession of the masters called the Old Commentary. And he quotes from it now and then, and this is a most profound quote from the book that is in all his works, in my opinion. And I'll tell you a funny story. When Curtis first started, my nephew Curtis first started reading these Bailey books, and noticed a couple of references to the Old Commentary, and he thought, well, it sounds interesting. So he wrote a letter to Lucis Trust. He couldn't find a copy of it anywhere. He wrote a letter to Lucis Trust asking, where can I find a copy of this Old Commentary? And they wrote him back, I'm sorry, but that's in possession of the masters. We don't have a copy of the Old Commentary. So, but he talks about how this Old Commentary is written, and he said it's very ancient. He says, if I were to tell you how old it is, you would probably not believe it. And I think to myself, it'd have to be pretty old for me not to believe it. Maybe it was written before this solar system was even established. Who knows? But anyway, he says this old commentary is very old and it's not written in any language that we know. And he describes this language a little bit. He says, the old scriptures are not read in the way modern students read books. They are seen, touched, and realized. Seen, touched, and realized. Interesting. So they're not only seen, but apparently you touch them. Now, I find that very interesting to contemplate, the reading by touch. A little bit the way John described in the Immortal book. Let me illustrate, he says. The one enunciates the word which grounds a triple sound. He describes how this is written in this book. He says this sentence is depicted by a shaft of light ending in a symbolic word in gold, superimposed over 3 symbols in black, rose, and green. Thus are the secrets guarded with care. It's interesting, the secret's guarded with care, so I guess this guarded, so if somebody on the dark side gets access to the old commentary, even they won't be able to understand it. But so you have a shaft of light, meaning that the one enunciates a word which drowns a triple sound. So the shaft of light comes down. It says ending in a symbolic word in gold, superimposed. Okay, so it comes down and drowns the triple sound. And the triple sound is what, Joshua, again?
The sound of the personality.
Right, the 3 aspects of the personality, physical, mental, and emotional. It drowns it, and the 3 aspects are symbolized by black, rose, and green. Black would be the physical, rose would be the emotional, and green would be the mental. And so it superimposes over them and drowns the triple sound. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But anyway, that's interesting how this book is written. So the Tibetan, when he translates this, he touches it, he sees it, and he realizes it, and then he translates it into English for us. So this is a translation into English. If we could read it in its original form, we'd probably be a lot more enlightened than reading it in English.
Reminds me of recently got a picture of a so-called Minoan calendar.
Yeah.
And it's all done with, looks like hieroglyphics or picture writing, but it follows a spiral. You have to read it along the spiral. So you basically you follow it with your finger as you go in. Otherwise, you lose your place and start over.
Yeah, there's some theories around hieroglyphics too, that type of writing, that it says a lot more than we think it says. If we could, matter of fact, I took Wayne back to ancient times one time when I regressed him, and he says that in a past life he was able to to take objects and put messages in them, and then reveal, obtain light and knowledge from objects and pictographs and different things. So I found that kind of interesting when he came up with that. Okay, let's go through this line by line. It starts out, when communion is established, words are forthwith used, and mantric law assumes its rightful place, provided that the one communicates the words and the 3 remain in silence. Okay, what communion needs to be established? Asaf, we haven't heard from you. Wake up. When communion is established, what communion needs to be established?
Communion between the lower three lights and the higher light of the soul.
Exactly right. Okay, when communion is established, then he says words are forthwith used. So does that mean people that haven't established soul contact can't use words? What does that mean? How are words used after communion is established? Let's pick on somebody else. Cindy. Oh, if you've got it on the tip of your tongue, go ahead, Asif.
The language of principles, the language of like mathematics.
Very close. Okay. Anybody else have any comment? Okay, so
I was going to say that the words are like you were saying in the Immortal. It's a vibration, and when the three are responding to the soul, it can issue a vibration that won't be destructive. It'll be harmonizing and synchronous.
Right. So, in other words, he says words are forthwith used. So that's an interesting concept to think of, that he's talking about words being used after soul contact that weren't used before, because esoterically words are different than we look at them in English. A word is something that communicates pure truth. A word can be a principle. A word can be a life itself. An entire life can be a word. A physical body is considered esoterically a word. A book, the Bible, is considered a word from a higher point of view. A principle is considered a word. So from the viewpoint of the higher self, a word is more than just the or best or like or son or something like that. But a word is a concept that establishes a principle and truth in the mind of the soul. So words are forthwith used. In other words, once a person gets soul contact, he is able to use eternal words. Jesus made that statement about his eternal words. He says, "The words I speak shall not pass away. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away." Because he spoke eternal words. And the great words that he spoke never did pass away. They're still here. We still use them.
He's given us all we need to know about this.
Yeah, he gave us a lot anyway. And so, for instance, you shall know the truth and the truth shall make you free. That is an esoteric word. To us, it's a phrase. But from a higher point of view, that is a word. And that word shall not ever pass away because it represents an eternal truth that will always be applicable.
And regarding this, he said, when you keep thine eyes single and thy whole body be filled with light.
Exactly. Okay. Now, he says, now when true words are spoken, he says, Mantric law will assume its rightful place. What do you suppose Mantric law is, Edward?
The law of sound and vibration.
Right. And do you think there's some people saying mantrams that don't have much effect?
Well, probably there are. There's much in the way of Maya and illusion that in the marketplace, so to speak.
Right. He says Mantric law will assume its rightful place. In other words, there must be mantras that are outside of Mantric law to have other mantras that's inside of Mantric law. And the key to being inside Mantric law is when words are spoken that are recognized by the soul. When you understand the language of the soul, then Mantric law will assume its rightful place. So perhaps you've been to meetings where people have spoken mantras. I've been to a number of them where I didn't feel that, I felt like they were stimulating their astral bodies, but I didn't feel the soul energy. And then other times you can give a mantra that will stimulate the soul energies. Now, Christ gave out an interesting mantra, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Now, if that contains some really great things, and if a person is in harmony with the soul and really understands what he's saying, that prayer can be very, very potent because it's a mantra. Another one is in Psalms about shadow of death type. I can't remember the exact wording, but we have a number of mantras right in the Bible itself, and a lot of other mantras that's outside of the Bible that are good. But
used something like that to understand a word I've never seen before, because letters themselves are more convey principles. They're much shorter. There's like in Hawaiian, you say aloha and it means like 50 different things. It comes down to a principle that is covered by one word or one sound. And so like if you get a word and it ends in R, typically words that end in R means you're talking about the person that's doing the work, like a farmer, a doctor, lawyer. And so it's the letters themselves that contain the principles, and if you're speaking in higher language, then you're picking up all the little like subtleties of the principles that are being talked about here just from one word, and analyzing one word.
Yeah, one word itself is composed of a number of principles. Okay, the next he says, provided this mantric law will work. He says, provided that the one communicates the words and the three remain in silence. So provided that the inspiration for the mantra or the knowledge of the mantra comes from the soul down to you, and then you quiet down the body, the emotions, and the mind, so that, like I say, we have all these chords vibrating all around us, and then the one chord we're trying to adjust to is something we have to tune into. So we need to silence all the personality so that it can receive from the soul, and then mantric law will assume its rightful place, and the mantras will actually have power, and that they will work, provided that they represent truth, and provided there's a linkage with the soul.
JJ?
Yeah.
JJ, did you mean Psalms 23?
Yeah, Psalms 23 is what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you have that handy to read?
Yes, but in Hebrew, so you won't understand.
Okay.
The 23rd Psalm is almost the same as Akhenaten's hymn to Aten.
Oh, yeah? Okay, the next he says, when response is recognized as emanating from the three, the one in silence listens. The roles are changed. A threefold word issues out from the triple form. Okay, so first of all, we have the soul communicating with us. The soul goes into deep meditation and it thinks, well, it's time for my lower self. I'll make an attempt, see if he's still as thick-headed as he was last time. I'll try one more time and try to communicate with him, and success. He communicates with him. We actually listen. We get a response. And when we finally respond, he says, the response is recognized as emanating from the three. Now, what's the three again, Annie? We will ask you. What are the three?
Three bodies of the personality.
Right, and what are they?
Physical, the astral, and the mental.
Right. So how is response come from all three? First of all, what physical response would be expected? Or let's start with the mind first of all. What mental response would be expected?
I don't know.
Okay, I'd say just a realization that something's happening, right? You may make a mental realization. Okay, and then it goes down to the emotional. What happens emotionally? How do you feel once you get a response?
Great, happy.
Right, happy, lots of love, good feelings. And then the physical response is generated in what happens there. Does the person do something afterwards?
Stillness.
No, before the stillness. The physical response is an action. Okay? So you get the thought, the feeling, and then you take action from what the soul says. And that's the response is recognized as emanating from the three. And the one in silence listens. So the soul listens to our response. It's listening, and it's listening to our response in our mind. It's listening to the response in our heart. It's listening, it's watching our actions respond to what it says. And when it sees response in all three areas of life, then it says the roles are changed. The threefold word issues out from the triple form. So in other words, the threefold word is your thought is like a word, your feelings is another word, and then your actions symbolizes a third word, and this is the triple form, or the threefold word issues out from the triple form. And the one in silence is the soul. In perfect silence listens and watches this response. And when it sees this response on all three levels, in purity of thought, purity of heart, and purity of action, then the roles are changed. Then it says, right.
I was going to ask you, when you say the roles have changed, in other words, you're saying that you become more aware of the soul and and you're more cellular activated, or how do you mean the role?
Okay, first of all, the role is the soul is communicating to us. Okay, and we tune in the soul and we say, okay, God, what do you want me to do? And then through the soul, God uses the soul to communicate with us what the higher will is. When we start to respond, then the roles are changed. Then instead of us concentrating on listening to the soul stills itself and watches us and tries to receive everything that we're doing to see how we're responding. So that's how the roles are changed. So the roles are changed from us listening to the soul listening to us. That's the changing of the roles. And the soul will only listen to us when we're doing the right thing, when we're doing everything headed the right direction. Then the roles are changed, and then the soul starts watching us closely to see how we're performing and if we become ready for our next step. Okay, and that's how the threefold word issues out from the triple form, and a turning around is caused then. The turning around is caused by the lower turning the attention upward and becoming one with the soul. It says the eyes no longer look upon the world of form. They turn within, focus the light, and see revealed an inner world of being. So how is it that the eyes no longer look upon the world of form?
Would it be that once you see a higher self or a higher plan, it becomes so glorified in the mind that you don't care about the physical form. You keep
Right.
seeking for that purity, that enlightenment that you gain.
Yeah, this is what Jesus meant when he says, be in the world, but not of the world. We got to be here and we got to make a living, got to take care of our wife and kids and pay the house payment and all these things. But so literally, it's impossible to take 100% of your attention away, but not your focus. Your focus, you can take care of the essential things of living, but have your focus on the higher. And this is what he means here, that the focus must be on the higher. The eyes no longer look upon the world of form. In other words, it's really not important. The only important thing is the guy that takes care of everything so he can fulfill his mission there. But that's not where his values are anymore. They turn within, focus the light, and see revealed an inner world of being. And that inner world of being cannot be revealed until the person lives up to this injunction. Be in the world, but not of the world. The person has to live up to this to see the true inner world of being. A lot of people think they've seen that inner world of being and haven't really seen it at all. They figure if they just go into do a little meditation and have kind of a peaceful feeling, that's pretty much done it. But that's a good step. But a lot of people that think that they have that inner world of being still put a lot of too much focus on the outer world. They might get just upset at a word worded incorrectly, really might be on fire about Donald Trump. They might be really upset over something a neighbor did or something a teacher said or whatever. But you have to let this go in the physical, emotional, and mental so you can detach yourself from it to focus on that inner world of being. And that is where the true soul contact will happen.
We need to look at examples in the world. Yogananda once said that he could be in meditation 24 hours a day, even though he was in the world.
Yeah, that's true. And like Paul said a similar thing. He says, I pray, he says, I die daily, and then he says he prays all the time. Well, obviously not walking around praying all the time, but he's thinking. His thoughts were such that he was like in a state of prayer at all times. Then he says, with this, the mana is still itself, for the eyes and mind are one. Now, manas is Eastern language for mind. So the mind stills itself. The eyes and mind are one. What does that mean? The eyes and mind are one. Let me see. Who haven't we picked on? Ken, let's pick on you. What do you think that means? The eyes and mind are one.
Okay, the eyes and mind are.
It's kind of a hard one. I didn't mean to.
Well, I mean,
something too deep there.
if you have the same focus, the eyes and mind.
Eyes and mind are one. First of all, to understand this, what's the difference between the eyes and mind?
The eye sees, the mind thinks.
Right, the eyes see and the mind thinks. But on the other hand, we have talk about the mind seeing light, right? When the mind sees light, what happens?
It it removes the hindrances, opens up the darkness.
Right. And we understand things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when the mind sees, we understand. So when we understand, so if the eyes and the mind are one, when you see something, you would what?
You see with understanding.
Right, exactly. You would see with understanding. So when the eyes and mind are one, when you see something, you could understand it. Now, right now, let's look at our political world, extremely divided. And you ever watch these debates on TV where both sides are debating each other? Either one or both sides are not seeing with eyes of understanding. And so if both sides could see with eyes of understanding, where the eyes and mind are one in both of them, they would cease arguing and they would reach agreement, wouldn't they? Okay, well, thanks a lot, Ken. Good job for just picking on you out of the blue there.
You see what's the meaning of what appears to be.
Right, right. And that's very difficult for people. It's a lot harder than people think they see what things mean, and they'll encounter somebody else who will totally disagree with them. So one or both of them are always wrong. This is the next statement is, the heart no longer beats in tune with low desire, nor wastes its love upon the things that group and hide the real. The heart no longer beats in tune. Is he talking about just regular heartbeat? Does our regular heartbeat beat in tune with something, or is he talking about something else?
It's figuratively speaking.
Right. Let's pick on old Nick here, see what he thinks about that. What kind of heartbeat is he talking about, Nick, do you think?
Can you say it one more time? I didn't quite catch the whole.
Okay, it says the heart no longer beats in tune with low desire. Okay, what kind of heartbeat do you think he's talking about?
Well, I guess the obvious higher correlation would be the heart center, which I guess could be seen as representative of higher desire.
Right, and what do you think the beat is? A beat is related to cycles, is it not?
Yeah.
Okay, and what cycles is he talking about, do you think? The heart no longer beats in tune with low desire.
Well, I guess sort of you could see it as basic cycles of attachment to things that appease the lower desire.
Right, that's really good. And also the fact that the pull of the lower world also comes in cycles. Mm-hmm. Just like there's night and day, you have times where you're not distracted that much by lower things. And then you hire this beautiful secretary that comes on to you and flirts with you every day, and all of a sudden you have a new type of heartbeat, a new cycle of pulling you toward something you should not be doing. Okay, well, thanks a lot, Nick. Sorry to pick on you out of the blue, but you did a good job. Now, what is it about these lower desires that captivates humanity so? Are the higher and lower sometimes mixed up? Do sometimes people think the lower is the higher and the higher is the lower?
Well, humanity doesn't know the difference, basically.
Right.
They drive the most enticing things, like emotion.
Okay, say that again, Jules.
I said they drive the most enticing things, like emotion. That's an immediately enticing thing to trigger. Or they trigger physical pleasures or relief. They trigger the instant things that we're thinking of. Instant gratification.
Exactly. Now, the lower desires comes from what center? Anybody? Joshua.
Sacral.
What's say?
He got it. I think Edward said
Sac-
sac.
Right, it comes from the sacral center. Does that mean everything from the sacral center is bad? Because it's lower? I bet
No,
Edward knows the answer to that one.
Well, everything has many functions.
Right. Right. In other words, the sacral center, it is lower, the seat of lower desire, but lower desires aren't bad. They're just things that need directed by the higher. Once they're directed by the higher, they can be directed to good things. Now, the solar plexus center, which is around the area of the navel, but back of that, has 10 energy petals. And each one of these energy petals represents a different type of energy. Now, when our various 7 centers unfold, when they unfold a new petal, as we evolve, we incorporate a new energy into our life. And a fairly advanced human being may have maybe 8 of these petals unfolded. Average person may have 5 or 6 of these petals unfolded. So, in other words, the more advanced human being actually has more emotional energy in circulation than the average person. And this is the opposite of the way everybody's thinking. People think that the advanced human being just leaves these things behind. No, he doesn't leave them behind. He has them in full power, but he is a master of them. And so he actually has, when all 10 petals are unfolded, the guy has a lot of emotional energy, but if he's proceeding correctly, he's also unfolded these higher energy states that control the lower. So he looks like he's not very emotional, whereas he actually has very intense feelings, which is interesting. So we're going to go through the 10 petals and talk about the energies that they are. They have dual energies within them. They may not be the exact sequence if you went around, but this should cover them all. Number 1 is romantic energy, and the opposite of this is selfish love or hate. Okay, so we have romantic energy and then selfish love. I love you because of what you do for me. And then romantic energy, boy, I'd be willing to do anything for you, stand on my head or whatever. So both of these are one of the petals. And we got to admit, without romantic energy, life wouldn't be that interesting. It kind of adds a lot of spice to life to have good romantic feelings about somebody. And then it can be destroyed by selfish love. The second is the trained conscience, and the negative aspect is guilt. The trained conscience realizes right and wrong because of what makes sense. Guilt, the person feels condemned and not worthy to try again. Guilt is one of the things that Christ came to save us from. When he told the people that were healed, he often says, you are healed because your faith, your sins are forgiven. Your faith has made you whole and your sins are forgiven. When people realized that their sins were forgiven, when they took that to heart, all of a sudden they experienced miraculous healings because they were able to let go of that guilt. Whereas the enlightened person will let go of the guilt, and yet he still maintains a conscience because just a recognition of what's right and wrong. But all this comes from the lower center. Third is self-esteem and ego, pride. So we have good self-esteem, and the negative aspect is ego that makes us feel superior. Fourth petal, happiness and sorrow. That comes, regular type of happiness and sorrow comes from the lower centers. 6 is desire and repulsion. 7, determination and acquiescence. So determination is a really good thing. Acquiescence is where we just don't try and let things go. 8 is passion and apathy. We accomplish a lot by having passion, headed in the right direction. Apathy, well, we don't care. 9 is aspiration and submission. Okay, and aspiration, we try to do better, and submission, we leave the trying up to somebody else's authority. And 10 is sympathy and loathing. Okay, all these lower things are not evil, but they are feelings that need to be headed the right direction by the higher parts of ourselves. And by mastering these lower feelings is extremely important in maintaining harmony with the soul.
JJ?
Yeah.
I as I understand it, in each of these opposites, each one of the opposites has its place.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you gotta have
for everything you have the time and place for it to be.
Right, with, for instance, romantic and selfish love. Romantic love is still a little selfish, perhaps, but then you have love that's just pure selfishness, which is, as the person evolves from the caveman to civilized man, he goes through loving person just for what they do for him. He goes through that selfish love. All of us have gone through the selfish love before we got to the nicer aspect of romantic love, where we take joy in bringing flowers to our mate and doing the dishes for them and stuff like that. Well, maybe not going that far, but well, I do quite a things for my wife. I'm going to cook her dinner here tonight, but we go through both of these aspects in our evolution. We have to go through extreme selfishness before we can understand the virtue of giving, in other words. So it's important that we not look back and condemn people that have a lot of faults, because in some past life we've had those faults and we've worked through them ourselves. So there, but for the grace of God go I is always a good attitude for people to take. Okay, looks like we're not going to get through all this. I know Jules was anticipating on how to overcome death. We're only halfway through it. So
that's okay. I can learn it tomorrow, how to overcome death.
Yeah, well, no, we're going to have the meeting next week on continuing this, and we're going to go into specifics about how this is accomplished. Cool. So we invite you to come back next week, and it will be next week at 10 o'clock in the evening on Sunday.
Okay.
And are you in Mountain Daylight Time, Jules?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Now, if any of you wonder what time it is, when I always post Mountain Daylight Time for the meetings, just go to Google, type in, like, if it's 10 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and then put your time zone in the search, and it will tell you the times of both time zones.
JJ, I don't think it is needed, because when I hover over the time you wrote,
Yeah.
I get my time zone.
Oh, really?
Just hover about it, and then
Really?
and then get the correct time of my zone.
I wonder if that's a computer program in your computer or something that does it.
Maybe it's Chrome. I use Chrome. Maybe it's this. I don't know.
Yeah, I use Chrome too. I'll have to see if mine does that. I've never noticed that.
Well, you'll have to see another one who is in his own time zone and hover about his.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll have to try that out. Well, I hope that works for everybody. That makes it nice and simple.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, my time zone starts at 5 a.m. with my study and reading, and 10 p.m. is too late for me.
Yeah, sorry about that, Edward. We always happy to have a DK scholar here with us. And
can I bring up the? And I was just reminded of this today, in case there's a problem. Next Sunday's Easter.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's not a problem. Doesn't make a difference to me.
Is there anyone here that Easter is a problem with for in the evening? I guess not.
I'm not sure. I'm going to be out of town, but I might be able to.
Okay. Well,
what I was meaning for, in case somebody be going out of town for Easter or being
yeah,
away,
yeah.
or.
Yeah, no matter what day we have it, it's not good for some people. So we'll just plan on 10 o'clock next Sunday then and go from there and get everybody get ready for a happy Easter. Is there any more comments or questions before we sign off?
Thank you for letting me do it the first time.
Oh,
That's all.
great to have you here. We have 2 new people today, Jules and Stacy. So really glad to have you guys on board. And
Also, happy Passover. It will be this Friday, the next Friday, the
really?
coming Friday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, Saturday, the coming Saturday, but the evening before that, Friday.
Oh,
so,
say Aziz and Tesa or something.
Passover, Pesach.
Okay, awesome.
Where did you get the formulation of the 10 petals from? I didn't see it in that chapter.
I got it through contemplation.
Oh.
Yeah.
I have a question. Where do you read the information about the molecule? I don't know if I've ever seen that in any of my readings.
It's in my book. If you haven't read it yet, you can download it free. Oh.
Which book is that?
The Molecular Relationship.
That's right.
Okay.
It's on the keys files section.
So you got that by intuition?
Got up through revelation. Powerful one.
Okay.
Okay. And I got confirmation of it also.
It's on the molecular group too, right? In the file.
I think it's in the molecular group. I'll have to double check.
It should be easier to get there because the keys probably has a bunch of files you got to dig through.
I'll post a direct link to it, Edward. So if you don't have a copy yet, be sure and download that. I thought you already had a copy, so I'll make sure that's available. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, well, glad to see all your smiling faces and good work for all of you, and hope to see you next week.
Thanks, JJ. Take care.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you,
Bye.
JJ.
Thank you. Good night. Bye-bye.
Good night.